"You're just not leadership material, Tom," my mother said calmly, her voice somehow louder than the applause in the banquet hall. A hush fell over the crowd. Investors, partners, employees. Everyone turned toward me as she handed my sister a ceremonial check for $1.5 million and announced her as the new CEO of McAllister Logistics, the family company I had just spent a year pulling back from the brink of bankruptcy. I raised my champagne glass and smiled, pretending my soul wasn't turning into granite inside my chest. 16-hour days, over 100,000 lines of code, a custom freight tracking app I'd built from scratch, after hours, alone in my apartment, was being hailed as the company's savior. But my name was nowhere on the banner that read, "Celebrating $200 million in new revenue." My sister, Ashley, stepped up to the mic. Blonde, polished, MBA from a mid-tier school, and a LinkedIn full of buzzwords. "The app transformed our operations," she said sweetly. "It was a team effort, of course, but I especially want to thank my brother for his technical contribution." Technical contribution. That's how she reduced a revolutionary product that saved our family's 60-year-old business. My name's Tom McAllister, 34, software engineer, and now apparently just the tech guy in a family that treats charisma like currency and sees hard work as a quirky little hobby. What no one in that ballroom knew, not Ashley, not my parents, not a single clapping investor, was that I'd never transferred ownership of the app to McAllister Logistics. Because I never trusted them to do the right thing. I built the app on my time, on my gear, with my skills, and I kept the receipts. Back in January, when the company was bleeding cash and about to lose its biggest client, I pitched Mom a lifeline. "Give me 6 months," I said. "I'll build something that will fix our tracking and inventory issues." She waved me off. "We're a trucking company, not a tech firm," Ashley had chimed in then. "Let him try, Mom. What do we have to lose?" It wasn't support, it was strategy. They gave me a tiny budget, a corner in the basement, a deadline. What they didn't know was that I'd already spent 9 months prototyping the solution. I didn't need their help, just permission. I called it TrackSure, a real-time logistics platform with predictive routing, automated client reports, and machine learning-driven load optimization. In 6 months, our company went from floundering to dominating the market. Clients returned. New ones signed up. Revenue exploded, and tonight was supposed to be my recognition. Instead, I got a glass of bubbly and a fake smile from the woman who used to steal my Halloween candy. After the speech, I wandered off to breathe. That's when Ashley found me. "Don't be bitter," she said, standing in the glow of her own spotlight. "You'll be CTO, 30% raise. It's a win-win. Except you get the millions and the title. And the credit. You're a builder, Tom. I'm a leader. We each play our role." I didn't respond. I just looked her dead in the eye, because what she didn't realize was that I had already filed a copyright for TrackSure, that I had documented every line, every hour, every update, that the IP belonged to me, and tomorrow morning she was going to find out exactly what that meant. The morning after the gala, I got to the office early. Not to celebrate. To prepare. McAllister Logistics was headquartered in a squat, glassy building on the outskirts of Atlanta. I'd been working out of the basement, no joke, the literal basement, for the past year. No windows, no visitors. That's where I built TrackSure. Alone. Like some kind of freight-obsessed golem, coding through weekends while the rest of the team went to golf outings and leadership retreats. When I opened the door to the lab that morning, I wasn't alone. Ashley was already inside. She stood in front of the whiteboard covered in my system, architecture diagrams, arms crossed, lips pressed tight. She hadn't set foot in that room once during development. Now she was suddenly fascinated by the technical blueprints she couldn't understand. "Morning," I said, setting my laptop on the desk. "Admiring your kingdom?" She flinched, but only slightly. "Come on, Tom, don't be like that. Last night was business, not personal. Taking credit for my work feels personal." "I acknowledged your technical role," she said, "but the board needs to see leadership, charisma. You know that's not your lane." "You mean I'm not shiny enough?" "I mean you're not what the company needs up front." I said nothing, just stared at her. Then she added, "Look, Mom's naming you Chief Technology Officer. You'll be CTO, it's a promotion. CTO, the booby prize, a 30% raise, and a basement office." "Generous," I said. It's recognition. No, it's a muzzle. It's hush money. You get the check and the title. I get a techie nameplate and silence. Ashley's expression changed. Softer. Maybe. Pitying. Which was worse. I knew you'd take it this way, she said. Mom was right. You're too emotional. That's when I knew. I had to act. I waited until 8:59 a.m., standing outside the executive boardroom with my attorney. Heather Preston wasn't just any lawyer. She was the kind you hire when you need to set off a controlled detonation. Quiet, calm, ruthless in heels. You sure you want to do this? She asked. Once we go in, there's no going back. I didn't hesitate. They've made it clear what I'm worth to them. Now it's time I showed them what I'm worth without them. We stepped in. Mom sat at the head of the table, flanked by board members, old friends of the family, some shareholders, and our CFO, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Ashley gave me a polished smile. Tom, so glad you could make it. And I brought a guest, I said. Heather Preston, my intellectual property counsel. You could have heard a pin drop. Mom's voice sharpened. You brought a lawyer to a family meeting? After last night, I figured I wasn't part of the family. Heather opened her briefcase and began distributing documents, copies of a preliminary licensing agreement. This outlines the ownership rights of the TrackSure platform, she said evenly. The software was developed independently by Tom McAllister on his personal equipment, during off hours, and outside the scope of his role at McAllister Logistics. No, Mom said immediately, shaking her head. That app was made for the company. It's company property. Heather didn't blink. Unless explicitly stated in an employment agreement, which Tom never signed, the intellectual property belongs to its creator. Ashley turned red. This is ridiculous. Heather raised a brow. Would you like to dispute the timestamps? The development logs? The GitHub commit history? Silence. Then I added, this isn't a threat. I'm offering a licensing deal. One that allows the company to keep using the app at favorable terms. Mom looked like she was sucking on a lemon. You're trying to extort your own family, she spat. No, I said, steady. I'm trying to be recognized by the company I saved. The room erupted in crosstalk, some board members concerned, others just confused. Only one voice cut through. Henry Calloway, Dad's oldest friend and the board's most respected member. I want to hear him out, he said. And I want legal counsel to review these documents. That stopped the noise, because when Henry spoke, people listened. Mom's jaw tightened, but she nodded. We adjourned for a break, and Heather and I stepped out. My hands were sweating, but I didn't show it. I'd spent my life playing second fiddle, being the background guy. But today I was holding the keys, and I wasn't done yet. The board reconvened an hour later, and the air in the room had shifted. Gone were the smiles and small talk. This wasn't a family meeting anymore. It was war. Heather stood at my side, calm as a bomb technician. Across the table, Mom's posture had gone full CEO. Hands clasped, expression neutral, but her eyes burned holes through me. Ashley wouldn't meet my gaze. After reviewing the submitted documents, Henry Calloway began. It's clear. Tom retains ownership of the TrackSure platform unless a prior agreement can be shown. Which doesn't exist, Heather added coolly. Mom didn't flinch. We're not disputing the technical points. What we are disputing is the intention. This is a family business, built on trust, and now Tom is threatening to tear it apart. I leaned forward. I'm not threatening anything. I'm offering a legal licensing deal. That's more than you offered me when you handed Ashley a check and a crown. Ashley snapped. It wasn't a crown. It was a leadership decision. It was a slap in the face, I shot back. You took credit for something you didn't even understand. You lied to people. And now that it matters, you want to pretend. I'm just the help. We gave you CTO, she said. You gave me a muzzle. Mom banged the table. Enough. The room froze. She stood slowly. Tom, I'm prepared to offer you a one-time payment of $3 million for full rights to the app. You'll remain CTO with a bonus structure, and we'll move on. Cleanly. Heather raised an eyebrow. We've already offered a licensing model. Your proposal amounts to buying Tom out of his own creation. It's generous, Mom said. I shook my head. It's not about generosity. It's about value, control, recognition. Ashley's voice rose. You think you can run a company just because you wrote some code? You think investors care about your GitHub? No, I said, but they care about the engine driving our revenue. And right now, that engine has my name on it. Henry cleared his throat. I believe there's another path. All eyes turned to him. If we spin off the tech into a new entity, call it McAllister Systems, Tom could lead that division. The family company licenses the software, while Ashley continues leading logistics. 2 branches, 1 umbrella. Heather nodded. That's aligned with our licensing terms. Separate board, separate leadership, fair market terms. Mom looked like she'd bitten glass. You want me to split the company? Hand part of it to someone with no executive experience? Henry countered. He built the product that saved this company. You'd be foolish not to give him a stake. The room buzzed. Some board members nodded. Others whispered. Ashley looked like she might explode. I stayed silent. Heather slid our formal proposal across the table. Tom's prepared to accept a full separation of McAllister Systems with 100% ownership of TrackSure and a licensing agreement that ensures uninterrupted use by McAllister Logistics. Under your leadership, Eleanor. The software remains in place. The business continues. But Tom retains IP rights and decision-making power over future development. Mom scanned the document. Her jaw clenched. This is a hostile takeover. It's business, I said. The same thing you taught me growing up. You told me to protect what I build. I am. She looked up, and for the first time in my life, I saw something behind her eyes. Not fury, not pride, fear. I need 24 hours to review this with legal counsel, she said. Take it, Heather replied. We'll reconvene tomorrow. The meeting broke. Ashley brushed past me in the hallway, nearly shoulder-checking me. You have no idea what you're doing, she hissed. This company isn't just software, it's legacy, relationships, people. I stopped, turned. No, you have no idea, I said. You think charm is strategy and buzzwords are leadership, but logistics runs on systems, data, reliability. I just gave the company a future, and you handed yourself a throne. You're trying to humiliate us. No, I said. You did that all on your own. She stormed off. Back in the basement, lab, I sat at my desk. Alone again. Only this time, not powerless. I opened the latest market projections. If McAllister Systems launched independently, TrackSure could license to competitors, scale nationally, maybe globally. And I wouldn't be some nameless engineer anymore. I'd be the founder, the architect, the one who finally stepped out of the shadows. I clicked open a blank slide deck, title, The Future of Freight, Autonomous Optimization in American Logistics, and I started writing. The next morning, the boardroom felt like a different battlefield. Mom entered flanked by Brandon Kessler, a corporate attorney from a New York firm known for hostile M&As. Gray suit, predator's smile, $1,000 pen. A message, loud and clear. We're done playing nice. Heather leaned over to me. They brought in a shark. Let's bring the tank, I whispered back. Everyone took their seats. Mom began. After careful consideration, we've decided to reject the proposal to split the company. Just like that. No build-up, no compromise. Ashley beamed. Heather folded her hands. Would you care to explain the reasoning? Kessler stood. The board determined that separating McAllister Systems would fragment the brand and weaken overall valuation. Instead, we're offering Mr. McAllister a revised equity deal. 10% of the company, retroactive bonus of $750,000, and exclusive CTO authority for all future development, but all IP rights transfer to McAllister Logistics. Heather didn't blink. So, you're trying to buy the product out again, just with a shinier ribbon. It's more than fair, Mom added. Tom will be a stakeholder, respected, and this ends the division. I opened the folder in front of me, took out a single printed page. I'll make this simple, I said. If the board doesn't accept the terms of licensing TrackSure, as outlined in our proposal, I will issue a cease and desist for its use by McAllister Logistics. Effective immediately. A gasp. 2 board members exchanged panicked glances. You'd cripple your own family's business? Mom asked coldly. No, you would. By refusing to acknowledge the real value behind your turnaround. Kessler leaned forward. You'll be sued. For breach of fiduciary duty. For damages. You'll be buried in litigation for years. Heather gave him a half smile. We're not scared of paperwork, but your clients should be scared of disruption. Without TrackSure, McAllister loses tracking, routing, automation, analytics, basically your entire operations infrastructure. Ashley slammed her hand on the table. This is insane. No, I said. This is leverage. Henry Calloway spoke. Quiet, but firm. If Tom owns the IP, and I believe he does, then the company has no legal standing to continue using the software without his terms. More nods around the table, one board member visibly sweating. Kessler stood, pacing. Let's say we agree to licensing. What's to stop Mr. McAllister from jacking up the price or revoking it later? I looked directly at Mom. Trust, the same thing you claim this family is built on. That stung. She said nothing. Heather spoke again. Our offer remains. McAllister Systems becomes a standalone entity. Tom holds 100% equity and full IP ownership. McAllister Logistics licenses. TrackSure at a preferred rate for 5 years. Mutually renewable. Protected by contract. Henry leaned forward. I support the spin-off. It mitigates risk and allows both sides to operate independently but cooperatively. Mom stayed silent, her face unreadable. Then she stood, walked to the window. Classic Eleanor McAllister move. Buy time by commanding the room without speaking. Finally, she turned. You really want this, Tom? You want to be out on your own? You want to be a tech founder in a space filled with giants and sharks? Yes, I said, because I already swam with one yesterday, and I'm still here. A twitch at the corner of her mouth. Almost a smile. Almost. You'll be responsible for every failure, every bug, every missed deadline. I've been responsible for every success so far. I'll take the trade. She sat back down. I want a clause in the licensing agreement, she said. If McAllister Systems is ever sold, we get right of first refusal. Heather nodded. We can work with that. The room finally exhaled. The board voted, 9 in favor, 2 abstained. None opposed. It was done. I walked out of that boardroom not just as CTO, not just as a founder, but as an equal. Ashley caught up to me near the elevators. You think this is over? She said through gritted teeth. You think building some fancy platform makes you a leader? I hit the elevator button. No, I replied. But making you sweat in a boardroom full of investors does. The doors opened. I stepped in, held her gaze as the doors slid shut. Back in the lab, I sat down and stared at the blinking cursor on my laptop. McAllister Systems was real now, but I wasn't interested in just licensing software anymore. I was going to scale it, build features, launch new verticals. I wasn't just going to run part of the business, I was going to become the competition, and this time, they would have to keep up with me. 6 weeks later, I stepped onto a different stage. This one wasn't a family gala. It was a national logistics tech conference in Chicago. Thousands of attendees. A screen behind me glowing with the words, Tracking the Future, TrackSure, and the next evolution of freight. I stood there, button-down shirt, dark blazer, nervous but focused, and introduced myself to the world not as a son, not as an employee, but as Tom McAllister, founder and CEO of McAllister Systems. The applause felt different this time. Real, but earned. The last month had been a whirlwind. I'd moved out of the basement lab and into a proper office downtown, built a small team, 5 developers, 2 operations specialists, and a very intense sales director named Jill, who didn't blink for entire meetings. We had a roadmap, a product vision, and interest from 3 national logistics companies who wanted a white-label version of TrackSure. The family company, McAllister Logistics, was now just one of our clients. Ashley hated that. I'd reviewed our licensing contract at least 5 times. Mom had insisted on quarterly performance reviews. She didn't trust me, not yet. But she didn't have a choice. Anymore. The company that once buried me was now reliant on the technology I controlled. Sometimes power isn't seized, it's revealed. One bug in the system, one change in an update, and their operations could stall. Of course, I'd never do that. Not just because of ethics, but because I wanted TrackSure to grow. Sabotage wasn't the goal. Scale was. After the conference keynote, I sat in a green room sipping cold coffee when my phone buzzed. Mom. I stared at it for a long second before answering. Hi. You did well, she said. You looked like a real tech CEO. I am a tech CEO. A pause. I suppose you are, she said. I watched the stream with the board. They were impressed. Well, it only took building a software empire. From a basement to get your attention. Another pause. Longer this time. You know, your father once told me that you saw systems differently. That one day, you'd build something we'd all depend on. My throat tightened unexpectedly. I didn't know he said that. He did, she said quietly. And he was right. Was that pride, regret? Hard to tell with my mother. Emotions weren't her first language. I'm not calling to patch things up, she continued. Not today. I'm calling because I need to ask you something. Okay? There's a new client, Eastway Freight. They want end-to-end integration with TrackSure. They're not interested in working with us unless you're involved. I almost smiled. Sounds like a licensing expansion, I said. We can schedule a demo. No, she said. They want you. On the call. Not Ashley. Not the sales team. You. That was the moment I realized the balance had shifted. I wasn't just someone they had to tolerate anymore. I was someone they needed. That night, I had dinner with my wife and daughter. For the first time in a year, I wasn't exhausted. I wasn't angry. I was clear. Megan asked, Daddy, are you famous now? I laughed. I don't know about famous, but a few people are listening now, she grinned. Can I build something? Like you one day? You can build anything, I told her. Later, after she went to bed, I stepped out onto the balcony and looked over the city. It buzzed with possibility. Like anything could happen next. And honestly, I wasn't sure what the next chapter looked like. Maybe we'd land more clients. Maybe I'd seek investors. Maybe even turn McAllister Systems into a platform for broader supply chain AI. The idea didn't scare me anymore. It excited me. What used to feel like rejection now felt like fuel. I checked my inbox. Another partnership inquiry, this time from a European firm. Subject line, your app is changing the industry. When I knew I wasn't just writing code anymore, I was rewriting the rules. 3 months later, McAllister Systems was on fire, in the good way. We'd closed our 4th major client. Revenue was surging. I was no longer the weird tech brother. I was a founder, a builder, a problem solver. I even got invited to speak at MIT's Logistics and AI Symposium. People in the industry were calling TrackSure the operating system of modern freight. But then came the email. Subject line, urgent. Your software is being replaced. It was from an old friend inside McAllister Logistics. He'd forwarded me an internal memo. Ashley was piloting a new tracking system, one built in secret with a third-party vendor. No licensing. No heads up. They were trying to quietly replace TrackSure and cut us out. It was betrayal. All over again. But this time, I didn't storm into a boardroom. I didn't beg for fairness. This time, I played their game, my team and I. Reviewed the new vendor's system. Turns out it was a rushed Frankenstein of stolen UX elements and untested back-end code. Worse, parts of it mirrored our proprietary architecture, enough to raise serious IP infringement red flags. Heather reviewed the evidence and said 3 words. Let's go nuclear. So we did. We filed a public cease and desist and launched a civil suit for IP violation, naming McAllister Logistics and the third-party vendor as co-defendants. We included side-by-side comparisons of code structure, interface elements, and core features. Then we posted an official statement on LinkedIn. McAllister Systems will always defend innovation. When you create something from nothing, you don't hand it over quietly. You protect it. It went viral in under an hour. By sunset, tech blogs had picked up the story. Freight news outlets ran headlines like, Founder sues his own family for stealing his platform, and he's right. The fallout was instant. Clients began pulling calls from McAllister Logistics, worried about operational stability. Their reputation, once rock solid, wobbled like a semi on bald tires. The vendor tried to deny it, but Heather had timestamps, screenshots, and developer logs that backed our claims to the last line of code. The next morning, I got a call from Mom. You've made your point, she said, her voice tight. No, I replied. They made my point for me. I just gave the industry a front-row seat. There was a long silence, then, quietly, Ashley's stepping down. I froze. She overreached, Mom continued. Tried to do what she thought was best for the company. But she crossed a line. She tried to erase me again. And she failed again, Mom admitted. The boards lost confidence, and frankly, so have I. I didn't gloat. I didn't yell. I just said, Tracksure is available to McAllister. Logistics under the original license, but any breach going forward and it's over, permanently. Understood. We hung up. A week later, I walked into a boardroom. Not theirs. Ours. My team sat across from executives from Roadcore, a Fortune 500 freight conglomerate. They wanted an exclusive regional deployment of Tracksure, with an eye toward international expansion. The deal was bigger than anything my family's business had ever seen. When I signed the contract, I didn't feel revenge. I felt clarity. I didn't rise by being the loudest, or by being born into the right name. I rose by building something real, something undeniable, and when they tried to bury me twice, I turned the dirt into a foundation. Weeks later, I received a handwritten letter from my mother. It wasn't long, just a few lines. Your father would have been proud, not just of what you built, but of how you stood your ground. I stared at the words for a long time. It wasn't an apology, but it was something. A beginning. That night, I stood on my apartment balcony, watching the skyline glow, and realized I didn't just win. I changed the game. And I'm not done. Because now, when the industry talks about freight tech, they don't say McAllister Logistics. They say McAllister Systems. And they damn well know which McAllister that means. And here it is. The finale of today's story. Did everything turn out as you imagined? Or did it end unexpectedly? I'd love to hear what you think. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and let's dive into the discussion together. If this story kept you in suspense, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't signed up yet, what are you waiting for? This is your chance to join an incredible community where exciting news stories unfold every day. Click the subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay up to date. Thanks for your attention, and see you on your new adventures.